Welcome to the Bayesian Conspiracy. I'm Eneasz.
I'm Steven Zuber.
Steven, welcome back. How have you been?
Not too bad. Ups and downs.
Okay, yeah.
But, yeah,
I,
you know.
I do. Well, life throws us shit curveball sometimes, and we keep going.
We do. We don't have a guest or any real topic this time because we have a backlog of feedback that we keep meaning to hit like every episode, and chip away at, and we haven't. So we're getting to the whole backlog. So this is feedback frenzy here.
Yeah, I just keep adding little things, and I'm like, it's just one thing, and then we'll get to it next episode, but like then we don't because we run out of time and we're tired, and we have such a big backlog now. Let's plow through all of it.
All right, this will be fun.
Hey, my first piece of feedback is from me.
All right, best source.
So remember when we had that mini, was it a mini? Yes, it was a mini episode about vibe clips because it was your first time going to a vibe type event, and we just talked about it and how cool it was.
Yeah.
One thing I meant to say, which I forgot to say, was we were talking about how, I guess kind of even euphoric it was to be like on edge all week and then literally all day right up to the minutes before totality being like, are we even going to get to see this thing? The freaking clouds are all over the place. We may get completely hosed out of it. And completely hosed out is a strong reaction. Like, we had a great experience. Even if the eclipse hadn't had happened, it would have been a great 3 days. But the fact that
was my take on it. But yeah, some people did feel that way, though, so much that they jumped camp and left the night before to drive, hundreds of miles. So
it's true, yeah. But we did get to see it. It cleared up right beforehand. It was freaking an ecstatic experience. We have great video of people reacting to that because it was so uncertain. One of the things that I've thought about a fair bit is that you can't have that without an actual real risk of failure. I remember when I was up in Portugal and I crossed this slippery ass rope bridge that was between two mountains. Like, there was an extremely small chance of failure on that, but there was a non-zero chance that I could fall and break my leg and possibly even die. And that would kind of suck. And the fact that there was an actual risk of failure and that was avoided made it so much better. And I think, like, if there was no risk that we wouldn't see the eclipse, it would have just not been the same. And yet with that, you also have to accept the risk that maybe we just won't see the eclipse, or maybe you just will be permanently crippled or dead. And I think some things, if the risk is small enough, are worth taking that risk because you just can't have the same feeling without any sort of risk.
I like that you qualified it with if the risk is small enough, because I agree there. There are home projects I do where I think, okay, if I fuck this up, I can always actually hire a professional, and they can fix my mess and fix the actual problem I was trying to fix.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes if the risk of failure is death, then I think it maybe isn't worth it.
Right.
But it's also worth pointing out that if the weather had been great all weekend and seeing the eclipse in totality the whole time was a certainty, it still would have been a really fun time. But it did add something to the fun of having, I think we did talk about this a little bit, but I do like that we're reiterating it, that it did add something to the fun of the entire experience of like, are we going to get to see the thing? Is the thing going to happen? That was a cool component.
Yeah. I mainly bring this up, I guess, because I think while there's definitely segments of society that are way too risk tolerant and just do risky behaviors for no good reason, I think as a whole, rationalists may be a little bit too risk averse, and pointing out that there is some upsides of risk. Not the least of one of them is that it really does make things more engaging.
Yeah. I wonder, I think I'd have to, I guess, compare to the rest of, maybe, I'm sure someone's done this in a more rigorous way, but I wonder if the average rationalist is more risk averse or if they're just more aware of the risks. And then, if the general person had been more aware of that risk, they wouldn't have taken it. And then, of course, there's outliers, gestures vaguely in the direction of Sam Bankman-Fried.
Right. Jesus, that guy.
So, yeah, sometimes you need some amount of risk aversion. Otherwise, you're destined for. Otherwise, you're eventually going to fail, and failure could be really bad. So,
yeah, to me, it also matters quite a bit what it is that you're risking. Like, if I'm risking my own health or life, that is not great, but it's my choice. And if I'm risking other people's well-being, that's a very different thing.
Right. My body, my choice. I'm a big fan of that too. I think it's one of those things where like, I go the speed limit or a bit over the speed limit on the highway.
Mm-hmm.
And once in a while, somebody go racing past me at 100 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And what bugs me about it is they're not just putting themselves at risk. Maybe they're having a really fun time doing it that way,
Mm-hmm.
but they're endangering the life of everyone in every car that they pass.
Yeah.
And that's what drives me. That's what drives me nuts about that kind of behavior.
Yeah.
So yeah, you've got to keep in mind the externalities of the risks that you're taking as well.
Right. And I mean, that was, again, with the Sam Bankman-Fried thing. Like, if he wanted to risk his own $6 billion, all right, sure. But once you're bankrupting, $6 billion worth of other people, that is fucked up.
Totally. Yeah. If he wants to go to Vegas and put it all on red, that's his business. But only when it's his money. Yeah.
Well, I want to take a real quick moment to say that if you found our discussions about Vibe Camp 2 and Vibe Clips interesting, if you are interested in seeing some of these post-rat peoples, there is a Vibe Camp 3 coming up in just a month. It is June 12th. And everyone that's listening to this podcast anyway is invited to go because you're probably pretty damn cool people. I'm going to be there. Steven might be there. He's still not quite sure about that. But we camp, we hang out, we talk about all sorts of crazy rational shit. We have various fun activities and big bonfires. And this year, Wes Fenza, friend of the podcast and friend of the podcasters, is having a summer solstice ritual right near the opening ceremonies, which is going to be very fun. And again, post-ratty because it's doing emotional community stuff.
All right. Well, I mean, I want to build the emotional community stuff into rat stuff too. I think.
Yeah,
giving that ceding that ground to the post-rationalists is ceding ground that isn't theirs. But
good point.
You said the 12th. Are you going out a day early? Because the website says the 13th through the 16th.
Oh, does it? Yeah. I am actually going out a day early. I'm going to be going to Wes's pre-party the night before, which has a hot tub and all sorts of good stuff. He also has a pool in his backyard. Steven, you're invited.
Does he live within driving distance of Vibe Camp?
Yes.
Oh man, lucky dude.
Mm-hmm.
And by, I guess, driving distance, I drove the last one and it was 14 hours. I'm assuming it's less from his house to Maryland.
I think it's an hour and a half.
That's baller. What a great location.
Yeah.
But yeah, check it out. Vibe.camp.com. General admission is $420.69 because that's awesome. And if you want a cabin, it's $590.
Actually, not vibe.camp.com, just vibe.camp.
Oh, excuse me. Yes. Yeah. They got the .camp domain.
Yeah, but it's a great time. Come hang out with us. I certainly enjoyed the hell out of it when I went.
I know I said this, but it's worth reemphasizing. There was not one social interaction that I walked away from Vibe Clips that I was like, man, that I feel worse for having had it.
Oh.
I loved I didn't love every second of it. There were bugs. I couldn't sleep. It was hot. It was cold.
Mm-hmm.
But some of those problems I'm better equipped to face now. But others that added to the experience. Like you said, the fact that it was parts of it were kind of a trial made it more fun.
Yeah.
Which is why you might not want to hang out with me if I ever go to Burning Man and I bring a camper. But I'll hang out and scorch in the sun during the day, but then I'm going to go back and sleep in a bed. So tickets are available until June 6th. So a little less than a month from you guys hearing this, but capacity is limited to 1,000 people, and I think that they've got plenty of room left. So I think everyone listening, if you guys are interested and have the financial and time bandwidth, it's definitely worth checking out. It's going to be a really fun time.
Wow, capacity is 1,000, huh?
Apparently. I
think we had something like 400 to 500 people last time, and that felt like a good, nice, solid crowd.
I think limited to 1,000. I don't know what they're where they're going to be at. So
yeah. Alrighty. Well, let's move on to feedback from people who aren't the two of us.
Sounds good. I like this one from Wes because I saw it in the Discord, and I think he's absolutely right. We were talking in the sequence section of the last episode about fostering that sense of childlike wonder,
Mm-hmm. It seems to disappear a bit as you age, and LSD only does so much.
Right. Or does too much.
Right.
Yeah. And I think he's spot on with this. He says there's a really easy way to foster childlike wonder in yourself. Have a child. I think that there's an easier way to do it, which is to be around a child. So if you have a niece or nephew, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it might have been her third birthday. I don't know if two. Yeah, I don't know, two or three. My sister got like a bubble machine, but it was more like foam. Like 2.5 feet high, like just that you'd walk into this wall of foam, like bubbles.
Yeah.
And my niece is out there like in a little bathing suit, and she just like is like her whole body's flexing, and she just like shrieks with uncontained joy, and that was delightful.
Yeah.
And there's also a version of this that I like because I've had the joy of seeing it twice. Seeing a puppy seeing snow for the first time.
Oh yeah.
And it's lovely. And I bet there's something equivalent to that with with human children or whatever. But puppies are special. So
yeah. The way children like interact with the world, especially when it's for the first time, it does make you look at it differently and does bring some of that wonder back. But we really need more children in public spaces.
I think that I think I agree. Other than the noise, I like being able to be away from the noise. But I mean, I'm trying to think of where did I live that was like definitely within throwing distance of a park. I don't know. At some point, I lived really close to a park, and you could hear kids kind of like if your window was open, you'd hear just kids shrieking noises, and that maybe I'm belaboring this part too long, but
I
yeah.
understand it was probably not an ideal location for someone of your temperament.
I would say anybody's temperament after a while, but maybe it is just me.
I'm sure there's some people out there who really like just hearing children all the time.
All the time.
I don't know. But,
I'm sure you're right.
Okay,
but yeah.
I don't know about children, but I always like being around other humans, and I don't understand this need to be by yourself sometimes kind of thing. But I get that a lot of people have it.
As far as I can tell, it sort of distills down to, and it depends on the type of person that I'm around too. And I think this is true for everybody. Some people find some people exhausting.
Yeah.
And so, the difference is like, does being around people fill you with energy or sap energy?
Right.
And for me, it depends on the crowd. And I think that's the case for everybody.
Yeah.
I want to hit this one from J Michael 2497 from the Discord.
No, this one was from the subreddit, which I found interesting because I don't go there very often, but I still try to go there every now and then and post links. And it's for the longest time it's had no activity because everybody's moved over to the Discord. But this one came from the subreddit. Our interview with the Collinses had some people talking on the subreddit. Where I was like, that's interesting. I wonder if there's going to be a resurgence or something.
Nice.
No.
Well, if so, I'm afraid I won't be there to catch it. But I guess if there's something really cool there, I'll sign in on the desktop and take a look. But
yeah,
I don't like giving credit my business anymore.
Right.
But I'm glad that they're still chatting over there. So this guy laid into it, I think, in a pretty sound way. I'm eager to hear your feedback, Eneasz.
Okay.
So he says that we often hear Eneasz saying things like, I stopped listening to NPR because too woke or blatant lies or other weird reasons without clear evidence, ...
All right.
So with Eneasz repeatedly saying weird things in this episode, like, well, they don't want you to know about birth rate problems, so they never talk about it. And actually happened to listen to a very relevant linked below NPR affiliate story a day after listening to this episode. So it seemed pretty easy to check with search. And I have to say, Eneasz, how do you know what you think you know, and why do you think you know it? If you don't actually read or listen to NPR, as you say.
All right. Well, this is absolutely fair, and I have to acknowledge that. I do not really listen to NPR anymore. I haven't for at least a couple years now. I do listen to the headlines sometimes, maybe twice a week or so. So I get some things from it. And every now and then I'll still listen to Planet Money because Planet Money still has kind of resisted since economics is the most based of the things that people report on. It's hard to go full. It's hard to be still bound to reality and go full woke when you're reporting on econ. But he's right that actually this has spread. The demographic collapse concern has spread out to the wider media. And I remember, gosh, maybe it was just 2 years ago when people were saying that talking about demographic collapse at all is racist. And if you talk about demographic collapse, it's just proof that you're a racist and you don't actually care about demographic collapse. You just hate black people. And now they've come around and been like, yeah, okay, I guess it's kind of a problem. We'll talk about it a bit. So I shouldn't have continued to have said that in the face of they have actually changed their behavior a bit. I guess just as as always, as typical, as rationalists, we are, 2 to 7 years ahead of the curve. But they do now talk about these birth rate problems, and I was holding on to words from the past which are no longer applicable. And it is fair that I'm not that caught up with what NPR says at any given time, because I don't listen to them anymore, and maybe I just shouldn't comment very much about what they say at all, except for the things I hear directly, as was covered in the most recent Mind Killer episode.
That sounds like a wise move.
No.
It's interesting. Maybe I just need, on a day where I don't have anything else to do, I should listen to a handful of these, because the way you describe, like, anyone who talks about demographic collapse is racist. And I'm not sure if, how big the NPR umbrella is, but if it's just like whatever, the main NPR podcast or whatever that said that, then I totally get why you hate them and you think they're a bunch of morons. But so I'm wondering, like, are you paraphrasing from memory just uncharitably, or were they really that, like, and I guess who's they? Like,
right. See, I guess that's one of the interesting things, and goes into the media almost never lies thing. NPR will be interviewing someone, like as part of their main show, and they will mention that on the right there are talking points about falling population levels. But if we look into the people who are making these concerns, it is obvious that what they really care about is that their white supremacist neighbors are not. Their white neighbors are not reproducing fast enough. We don't have actually a population problem because we have plenty of immigrants, which shows that these are more of an anti-immigrant thing. And like, they never literally say you're a racist asshole, but it is very strongly implied that you couldn't get any other impression if you're actually listening to what they're saying. And like, importantly, the hosts, the people who are talking to them, are like, oh yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, that sounds quite problematic. Like, they don't say, now hold up a minute. What's this about, like, importing all our people? Could this have other knock-on effects we aren't thinking about? And it's impossible to listen to these things and not see what the narrative is. And you either have to buy into the narrative and support it, or you have to say, okay, what the fuck, you guys? And I chose the latter route eventually.
That's fair, because I find that kind of stuff off-putting. I think maybe it's like when people say, oh yeah, the New York Times says this, and I wonder, maybe that should be the way that, maybe we shouldn't phrase it that way. Maybe we should say there was a New York Times article that said this, right? But maybe if there's enough of them and it's like a repeated theme, and I realize I pivoted from NPR to New York Times. It's just another hate outlet that you guys shit on the Mind Killer, I think with good reason.
I mean, so if there's, I believe Scott Alexander pointed this out too, like on TERF forums, lots of times they will just post news articles about trans people doing hideous crimes or other various bad things. And every single one of those is an actual news article about an actual thing that actually happened, right? But like, when that is all you see and it is constant feed, you understand the narrative they're weaving, right? And so, yeah, they also almost never lie. And yet you can see what they're doing. It's the same kind of thing. It would be, I think, disingenuous to pretend that they are not weaving that narrative, because, I have eyes and a brain.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess, like, my mind goes back to the anti or negative utilitarians that we talked about with Trace last episode. Mm-hmm. The fact that they exist, I think, doesn't actually speak ill of utilitarianism or consequentialism more generally.
Oh no, it speaks badly of negative utilitarians.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay.
But so like,
but some people do try to make that argument,
right?
Yeah.
Or I think like Peter Singer has some thought experiments on his. I don't know. I'm sure the website's still up. I think it was just petersinger.net or something. I saw it 20 years ago, but or 15 years ago. But like, there was a thought experiment, I think, called Heavy Petting, and it was just a short essay talking about what is actually wrong with fucking animals. Mm-hmm. And he's not advocating for it. He's just trying to get people to think about, like, hey, what's your actual objection here? Mm-hmm. So like, how did this tie in? I guess so anyone who would use that to say, well, clearly Peter Singer is an idiot, or philosophy as a whole is full of morons. And I'm not saying that that's what people are. I guess I'm trying to say that we shouldn't paint with too broad a brush from small samples. Right. But if it was like, or maybe this is actually a more realistic example. Some people don't like EA because they think it's all about, or too largely about AI safety.
Okay.
And that is definitely a component.
Right.
It's probably top 5, of if EA were a unified cause that hit the top 5 list, maybe top 3. But it's hardly the main thing I think they care about.
Right. It is a minority of the where the funds go.
It's definitely a minority of where the funds go, absolutely. And I think it's even a minority of where like the interest in conversation goes. So, I guess I just want to, maybe it's really easy for me to maintain my rose-colored glasses because I never have to test them against the sunlight of actually reading the New York Times. So maybe if I did do that, I'd become more, I was going to say more jaded. Maybe I'd become more accurate and, but jump on the hate bandwagon. But I don't know if I'm making a coherent point here. I want to differentiate between some people at insert this organization or movement or whatever say this versus this organization or movement is about this, or this organization says this as a whole.
Right.
But you're right. When it's said often enough, it's like, okay, you guys, maybe you're not coming right out and saying it, but you're definitely not shutting it down, and you really should be. Yeah. Okay. I think I've belabored on that long enough.
No. Well, when we thanked our patron, Thomas Askew, of 1 or 2 episodes ago, that is Ask Who from the Discord, who is also the guy who does Ask Who Casts AI, where he is translating both Plane Crash and Luminosity to audiobook using AI narration, and a whole bunch of interesting blog posts out there across the internet, which I've subscribed to his feed now because I've just found a lot of interesting things on there that I wouldn't have taken the time to read, because the reading is more attention intensive than listening to something while you're doing something else. So anyways, Thomas Askew, you're Ask Who. Thanks, dude. You're awesome.
Yeah.
I would have said that in the Thank the Patron segment if I had realized.
Me too.
Also, I realized that Ask Who and Askew are a pun, but it's one of these puns that I can get behind a little bit. So
I just noticed that too.
Yeah.
So I like it.
I kind of like it too. And I feel bad for saying that.
It's because Ask Who is, well, you should never feel bad about enjoying stuff, man.
But if they're puns, then you can feel bad about enjoying them.
No, just never feel bad about enjoying anything. But yeah, I like it. And also Ask Who is just a great internet name.
Yeah.
It lends itself to lots of fun jokes.
Yeah.
All right. What is this comment here from Wes?
This is a few episodes back when I was talking about spirituality, and what spirituality meant in a secular context is, yes, a feeling of connection and belonging to something greater than oneself, both temporally and spatially. So like literally things that are larger, like a cathedral, or things that go on vastly in time, or organizations that are composed of, many tens or hundreds of people. A connection with that is what the feeling of connection to one of those things is what spirituality is. Wes does not like me using the word spirituality. We argued about this a little bit. His primary contention here is you don't believe in the same thing those other people believe in, like Christians and other people who use the word spirituality, which is why you shouldn't use the same word for it. And I just disagree, because that word is the word for the emotion, and we're feeling the same emotion. And if that emotion is directed on their part to, spooks and magic, but on my part directed to buildings and organizations, I don't think that I need to invent a new word. That's just stupid. We already have a word for that emotion, and I don't cede claim to it to people who have decided that they think magic is a big part of it, because I don't think magic is a big part of it at all. And honestly, I don't even think that in their usage, magic is really a big part of it. They latch onto the magic stuff because it feels really big, but it's the connection to bigness that's the important part, not the magic.
I see where you're coming from, but we had a similar discussion about the use of the word religion with Trace. And,
yes, we did.
I think that it is important, if you think you share a kernel of truth with, or a kernel of commonness with people who are using the word spiritual in the ghosty way, it might be like really unhelpful to also call what you're talking about spirituality, because people will think you're talking about the ghost stuff and you're not. Like, I see what you're talking about. But I think what you're trying to do is not so much rebrand, but point out the fact that no, this is actually the brand. We've been mishearing them this whole time.
Yeah.
And anyone who thinks that spirituality is just about ghost stuff is you guys are not giving them a fair shake. What they're actually really into is all the things that you're talking about, the large community, the deep time kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I see what you're doing with that particular project there with the word spirituality, and I don't necessarily have the same level of contention with it that Wes does, but I do see where he's coming from. That it is a distinctly different thing. Like the fact that you have to explain what you mean by spirituality means that you're using it differently than other people, right?
Yeah, but I think it's worth taking the extra sentence or two to explain that my use is different and doesn't mean magic stuff. And
it is a lot easier to use an existing word that has as a very similar or some of the same stuff at its core than to invent a new word. Inventing new words, I think, is really hard.
Yeah.
Not inventing new sounds is easy, but getting it to catch on is hard.
Yeah.
So I think maybe you could call it secular spirituality.
Yeah.
It would be a nice meet in the middle kind of thing. Because then people would see it like, what does he mean, secular spirituality? Oh, cool. Yeah, I can get behind that. Mm-hmm. But if they see you talking about spirituality, they're like, oh, he's a hippie. Who talks about ghosts and stuff. So maybe there's a middle ground there. But I can kind of see if you've got your heels dug in and you don't want to seed the ground and start putting secular dash in front of it. I wouldn't blame you.
I'm willing to put secular dash in front of it.
Well, maybe that would appease the discontents.
Yes, the Wesses and the do the maths of the world.
Yeah, let's move on to do the math here.
Do you want me to read it?
Yeah.
Okay. Do the math has similar comment. Spinoza-ing is a new word based on Spinoza's use of the word God to mean things that are not commonly seen as God by the masses. So that's
the common example I was going to use.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh no, God to me is just, the love and fun I get of working in my garden or something. It's like, well, that is not what people mean when they're nailing people to crosses.
Right. Yeah.
Like they're talking about something very different.
Yeah.
And it's important to me that you see that.
And that is a thing Spinoza did. So Scott Alexander, I believe, coined the term Spinoza-ing for when people do that. Do the Math says, I think Eneasz's Spinoza-ing feels like an emotionally satisfying thing to do, but also I think it's a very slippery slope for many. You first say you believe in God metaphorically because you want to partake in the nice spiritual feels. Then the irony of your statement starts becoming reality. Same thing happens with EACs, many internet extremists, and I think most post-rats. Which, first of all, yeah, I do see a lot of times people are like, yeah, I'm just joining the Mormon church just for the community. I don't actually believe in it. And then like 2 years later, they're praising Jesus or whatever, which is why
we do that to stay in the community at some point.
Well, no, it's not just to stay in the community. Like they literally start believing it. I think this is a common failure mode of humans. And I think this is one of the reasons we need a rationalist church that does not have the magic parts and just can give people Mormonism without all the Jesus.
I wonder, and this is a small digression, but like, do you think that those people actually believe it, or do you think they believe in believing it and they don't know the difference?
If they don't know the difference, how much of a difference is there? And
if they don't know the difference, how am I going to read their mind and tell? I suppose too, right? Yeah. So fair enough. They at least start making the same sounds,
right?
At which it is right on that slippery slope to doing the same things, which might be whatever, protesting Planned Parenthood or something, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think Do the Math has a good point here, and I think it's a thing that's important to keep our eyes open for. And also, I'm not going to fall into that trap because I said so. No, you're right. This is a thing that like it happens a lot with post rats too, where it starts out with just like I'm going to do some meditation and try to get in contact with myself, and ends up with like I believe in the hyper consciousness beyond the universe that directs all things. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say about that except like don't do it. And maybe really it would be good to have a centralized teaching that helps people avoid that particular pitfall. So a thing that we could maybe work on.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like it's worth just mentioning as a quick parenthetical that it is absolutely possible to do all the important meditation bits, at least important, the things that I find important, without the smallest ingredient of mysticism.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
possible, which is why it's so frustrating when people fall into the mysticism.
Yeah, if they do discover the consciousness of the universe somewhere in their meditation, and I haven't found it, maybe they could show the rest of us how to find it easily. But if the only way to do that is to smoke DMT, then I don't think you're actually experiencing the thing that you think you're experiencing, or rather, your experience isn't on a solid foundation as you think it is. But this is beyond my parenthetical, because I'm curious about his next thing. He says that this is going on from Do the Math. That said, I do think the philosopher's qualia or consciousness is adequately described as soul. Soul doesn't necessarily imply dualism, as the Greek Stoics can attest.
Yeah, I agree. I really like Andrew Cutler, who we had on from the Eve theory of consciousness recently with snake cults, who said that soul is just the best word for what happens inside a human mind once it picks up on self-reflective thought, and I agree that I think that is the main thing that separates us from the animals, and soul feels like the right word for that.
I mean,
and I don't.
Is it just because you hate the word qualia so much?
Yeah, qualia is yes, it is. Qualia is a made-up word that doesn't mean anything.
Well, it has a very specific meaning, and it is not related to what people use. Like, I actually find the example of soul here as more egregious than your use of the word spirituality.
Okay.
Because when you poll the average Joe, they'll say, "Oh yeah, soul, that thing that God gave you when you were conceived or when you were born or at some point between the two moments, and goes on after you die." Like that's what soul means to people.
Yeah.
Soul has a meaning, and to try and like grab the essence of it of like, oh no, I'm talking about consciousness. Well, like, hey, just talk about consciousness.
Yeah, maybe soul granted too much baggage.
Like recursive consciousness is a lot of syllables where soul is just one, and I get that. But I think there's a reason to fall back on using the word soul, especially when talking about like the Andrew Cutler, humans waking up as people. We and using the imagery and saying we were ensouled, like that's evocative and I like it. But to run around, and he wasn't doing this, but if we were to run around too far saying, oh yeah, no, we're talking about the soul, when we talk about consciousness or whatever, I think that is actually just useless, actively misleading and harmful to trying making any point.
Yeah, that's fair. Soul would need a whole lot more rehabilitation before we can actually use it this way.
But
I really like the using of like ensoulment as a rhetorical device, like in a speech. But I think you're right that we shouldn't be using it like as a common word use that is so different from how other people use it. Unfortunately, we aren't.
Not yet. Yeah. Let me see the rest of Dunath's comment here.
Okay.
So they say, like, thinking, I probably won't have any qualia after I die feels different than thinking, my soul dies when I die. So I'm going to pause there. Does it?
I mean, not for me, because as a Jehovah's Witness, we were taught that your soul dies when you die. So I have an unfair advantage here. I think it'd be very, very easy just to teach people that when you die, your soul dies. Your soul cannot continue outside of your body.
It's interesting. I think I stopped believing in souls before I heard the word qualia, but I bet it happened within the same 2 years. But if I believed I wouldn't have any qualia, I would believe my soul died.
Yeah.
I maybe it does feel different to some people thinking those thoughts, but to me it feels the same. The latter does sound more poetic, though. So I'm going back to do the math here. The latter does sound more poetic, which makes me have more undue emotionality attached to it. Though I never dream of announcing, quote, my religion says, after 1 year of life, a baby probably gets a soul, and after the baby's brain decays, its soul leaves its body and it is destroyed. That's neither poetic, and it makes my emotions attached to the truth value of the statement.
Oh, read the next line.
Oh, I find myself wanting it to be true, so my religion can be true. I see where he's going there, but I guess I just wouldn't use the word soul there. You just talk about consciousness, and that becomes totally unobjectionable to me. Am I missing something?
I think the only thing you're missing is that I did say in the episode that we can just teach that in our religion, the soul enters the body somewhere between birth and the first birthday.
I mean, yeah, that's fair. And yeah, like I fall back on what I was saying earlier about just using the word soul there. But yeah, I think it carries a lot of baggage, and while that can be useful to leverage, it's I think also dangerous.
Dangerous in what way?
Misleading. Again, the same way of talking about God as that feeling I get when I help somebody, hold the door open for somebody or whatever, right? Like, okay, great, you're talking about something, but it's so different from what people say that if you're going to go around saying, well, of course, I believe in God. God's great. I love him. Like, you're talking about the feeling of warmth and joy that you get from helping somebody, but they're talking about the bearded guy in the clouds that says we should kill gay people.
Right. I mean, I think it's not misleading as long as you clarify. Like, when he says, my soul dies when I die, sounds more poetic, but it makes me have more undue emotionality. I don't think that emotionality is undue. I think it is a big fucking deal that your soul dies when you die. Your soul dies when your body dies, I guess, since you are your soul, in my opinion. That should be something you have a lot of emotionality attached to, and it's not undue at all. And
yeah, but
so,
even
if you tell other people, yeah, I believe in the soul, but I believe the soul dies when the brain decays, that's not false at that point, is it?
It seems it would be disingenuous if I said it. Just because to me the soul is the magic thing that it's this kernel of you-ness that is neither your body nor your brain that came from somewhere and usually persists. But if you want to finish the sentence by saying and it dies when you die, you can chop that part off. But
I mean, I disagree even with the first part of the sentence. I think the soul is your body and your brain, mostly your brain.
Right, but almost nobody who uses the word soul uses it that way. They talk about it independent of that.
Well, those people are bad and wrong. Maybe not bad, but they're wrong.
But they've been using it that way for thousands of years.
It's true. We gotta work on these people and their misuse of words.
Or let them have the word soul, and we'll just use the word consciousness.
But then they're gonna think that when you die and your consciousness dies, that your soul can go on somewhere, and that's just false.
Well, I think it'd be easier to say, and I believe that consciousness is all that you are, than just trying to rebrand soul left and right. But
I guess, but then they start thinking that we believe in pea zombies or something.
I mean, we're never going to be able to, somebody will draw attention with everything, and maybe that's kind of what I'm doing here. But I think rebranding words is. I talked about how hard it is to make up new words, and rebranding is a bit easier, but. Like the shorter the stretch you have to go from the current usage to the rebrand that you want, I think the better.
Yeah, that's
I think
fair.
consciousness needs a lot less flexing than soul does to hit the use case that we want.
And also, if our case becomes very popular and becomes the new meaning of the word soul, then we kind of took away a word that they had to describe something they believed in, which is not antisocial to take words away from people that they had been using for things.
Imagine if we invent in the next decade the ability to upload people's consciousnesses to computers. There will be real disagreement that people will have about whether or not that person is actually transferred, because their soul did their soul get transferred?
Yes.
The thing is, if you and I think would be uselessly saying yes, of course, and they're like, no, the soul is different. It can't be contained that way. They're talking about some other thing entirely.
Yeah, I guess.
That's my I was gonna say 2 cents, but more like 50 because I spent a while on it. So.
No, I agree with you. I think that maybe they should just come to the realization that our religions are different, and different religions can have slightly different meanings of the word soul.
I bristle at you calling calling whatever I'm talking about a religion. But
okay, in the Tracing Wood Green's definition of religion.
But even that, all right. I mean, this just keeps moving us to different words. But to me, a religion isn't a religion if it doesn't have some element of mysticism to it.
Oh, okay.
Like I do see and he made a very compelling case for the religion of social justice. What was the word? Not activism.
Progressivism.
Progressivism. Like, but there almost is a mysticism in that they don't care about the truth.
Yeah.
So like to that extent, there is some, if it's not quite magic, there's some anti-reality in it. And my thinking, if I'm arguing with somebody in 10 years about whether or not, if I'm uploaded, I'm on a computer and I'm arguing with somebody about whether or not I'm really there, and they're like, well, your soul isn't there. And I'm like, well, sure it is. That's a useless conversation. And I don't want to say, well, we just have different faiths,
I see. As long as faiths are protected by the government, I think actually it might be very important. Like if they think that your soul does not exist if you're uploaded, then they may feel there's no big deal in deleting you. It's not killing a person. It's just deleting a program. And if your religion says that actually you are a person and a soul, and religious beliefs are protected by the government, then having that belief recognized as a religious belief could be the difference between life and death for you.
You're not wrong. Something to keep in mind there, I guess. So yeah, let's put a pin in that and keep that in the back burner. Yeah.
Okay. Going on to Zila talking to Steven about the phrase Homo economicus, where you said Homo economicus is a useless concept and you don't like it, and everybody who ever invented it should be burned at the stake. This is a direct quote from you.
I was a little softer. I think I had said that I never understood it and thought it like seemed completely absurd. And I think I even asked like if someone could explain it to me, like where it was ever valuable. So I think that's what this is.
Yes. Zila says, Homo economicus seems extremely useful to me. 1, it suggests a thing that will be truer when optimization pressure is applied. Example given for companies. 2, humans respond to local incentives. Even if humans aren't Homo economicus, getting a result about what Homo economicus would do legitimately tells you things about what humans would do.
Challenge. That's actually where I draw my discontention.
Okay.
Or that's where my discontention stems from. Is like, the Homo economic. Tell me if I'm painting this too flippantly, but would you like $5 now or $6 in 2 weeks? Well, if you're hungry and $5 will buy you lunch, it makes more sense to get it now. But then, like the naive answer is like, well, $6 is more money. Why wouldn't you? You just want an immediate payoff, and that's irrational. So, like saying the Homo economicus would take the $6 doesn't actually tell you what humans would do. It tells you what this weird Spock-like robot would do.
Well, I think like to Zila's point, it tells you about what a human would do if more optimization pressure was applied. Like it is more optimal to have $6 rather than $5, and if there was more pressure where you could survive not having $5 and get lunch some other way, then Homo economicus would take the 6. And so it tells you that like what a human would do if the situations were more more tilted in that direction, right?
I see that. Yeah, I follow what you're saying and what she's saying. I think that is the assertion then that, I'm trying to think of how to put this. If people weren't biased or using bad heuristics or whatever, the Homo economicus model would apply more.
I think it's more like if there was more pressure to be more optimized in an economic sense, then that would apply more. And humans aren't always more optimized that way, but other times they are. Like the first part of point number 2 is that humans respond to local incentives, which is true, but they respond at different rates. And if there's a greater optimization pressure, then they will respond more to those incentives. Yes?
Yeah. Let's take the example of like that game where, if you and I cooperate, we each get $2. If you defect and I cooperate, I get $1 and you get $5. And if we both defect, we each get, I don't know, $1.50 or something, right?
Yeah, let's call it $0.
Well, I think the point of this is that
you still got to have some. Yeah, okay. $1.50. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And it should be more, specifics aside, what I'm trying to get at is like, some people out of a sense of like, fuck you, that's not fair, would rather take less money home to punish the defector. And I feel like that goes against the Homo economicus model. But I think punishing defectors is part of what humans do, but maybe not what Homo economicuses do.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually legitimate. We want to disincentivize that behavior.
Yeah.
But to me, the homo economicus is always like the reductio ad absurdum of like, well, I'd rather take home money so they can keep defecting all they want, and I'll go ahead and keep just trying to bring some of this money home, right?
I think you're
because more money is better than no money.
Yeah, I think you're mostly right. I think it's a useful model that doesn't always apply to humans, but can tell you how things would change under greater pressures.
Yeah. Well, that's well put, and I'll have to noodle on that a bit more, but I do like the explanation there. Thank you, Zila.
Yeah. Phase, talking about the snake cult theory of consciousness. We were talking with Andrew Cutler, and we were mostly talking about Christianity stuff because that is where his background is, and mine and Steven's as well. There was a talk about like how does this come up in other cultures. Andrew Cutler talked a little bit about the Greek pagan roots, which is sort of pre-Christian. But we both said like how does this work to like Hindu mythology or something, and the answer was ultimately I don't know. We don't really know that stuff because we haven't looked into it. He hasn't looked into it. We haven't looked into it. Like it's not a area of expertise for us. So if anyone does know a lot more about the stuff, please let us know. Faze does know more about the stuff and is letting us know.
These are so cool.
Saying that the obvious Hindu mythology connection to snakes is Shiva, the destroyer god. He's always surrounded by snakes. He also drank a lot of venom and his throat became blue, which signifies deep spiritual insight or something.
I can dig it. It's right there. More snakes, more venom. It's
more insight.
Yeah, it's all painted on the walls there, guys.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Good catch.
Yeah, a lot more to dig into there, I guess, if someone wanted to go digging deep into Shiva and the venom that was drunk in order to save the world.
I'm sure there's cool stories in all of these. And, Richard Dawkins wrote it was like ostensibly a kid's book about creation myths around the world or something.
Mm-hmm.
I bought a copy and gave it to my very young cousin at the time. This came out well after the God Delusion, and I think maybe after The Greatest Show on Earth, but it was still clearly like this book isn't about fuck you religion, but it is like kind of subversively like, oh, here's more creation myths, and for in there I'll also throw in the Christianity one. And I should read that book and see if there's a lot of snakes in it. I bet there are.
Oh, that'd be fun. I mean, not all creation myths are about humans waking up, though, right?
No, I don't think so. And like some things I think are pre-creation myths, and they're just like like the origin of the name Milky Way.
Yeah.
That I don't think has anything to do with snakes or anything per se, but
I would still expect to see a lot of snakes around the creation myth place.
If this book is well researched and homeworked, I imagine there's lots of snakes involved.
What was the name of the book again?
I will have to Google it really quick.
Okay.
I don't know. It's not on this list. If it is, it's not jumping out at me.
Okay. Well, alrighty. Moving on to the gangbang episode. Another one of the guys that was at the gangbang wrote about his experience. He contacted me on Twitter and we exchanged some messages back and forth. It again sounded like a fascinating experience. His write-up is a good read, and especially like the ending gives just warm fuzzies reading it. So I am adding a link in the show notes, and I just encourage people to check it out. It's he said it was one of those things where it was interesting being in one of these internet controversies and seeing people making assertions and just being like, oh no, they're just like flat out wrong. They have no idea what they're talking about. One of those revelation things. That was something he said to me personally, though, not that's in the write-up.
Gotcha.
Also, the Virgin posted on the Twitters about his experience in a short thread, which I didn't link to here, but I will include the link in just a moment. He points out this was in response to our episode because he listened to it and said, "Wow, it was a really good episode." He said the phrase "there was snacks" was an understatement. I ate dinner before like a fool. It was a cruise ship snack buffet on that countertop. So apparently the men were well fed so they could keep their energy up. He also says that meeting and getting to know Lucy Belmont was an enormous privilege and itself a special memory. Thank you, Eneasz, for a wonderful record of a memorable slice of my timeline. And yeah, that made me feel good. So I'm glad.
That's great. Yeah. I'm glad this guy had fun. Yeah, I mean
This is two different guys.
Right. This was from this whole quote, the snacks and stuff, that was from the Virgin, right?
Yes, yeah.
That's what I was talking about. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
And I mean, I guess I'm happy everyone there had fun. But it's still just such a weird thing. Like, and not weird bad, just like weird.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like the whole point of it is that it's weird.
Yes.
Strange times we live in.
Right. There was one other comment, which now I can't find. I don't even remember where it was that I saw this, which sucks. I should have bookmarked it. But I saw someone talking about how absolutely chill the gangbang was, and that it actually really was a bit different from other sex events that he'd gone to. And his hypothesis was that it was so much more chill because there wasn't any competition among the men for the women. He said that everybody there knew they were having guaranteed sex with Ayla and sexual contact with fluffers, so there was no sense that like helping someone else might mean I end up frustrated. There were only upsides to cooperation, which, damn, that's a darn good point, and just once again hammered into my head that like scarcity mindset versus abundance mindset is one of the most powerful forces on Earth. And once you know like everybody's getting laid, everything's going to be cool, it's just so much better of a vibe.
Count on Ayla and Nate Soares to be able to coordinate a win-win orgy.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I had a quick note in here, and I looked in the Discord and I couldn't find it again. But after it was a couple episodes ago, we read part of that Keats poem, and somebody responded with a short poem in the Discord, and I think it was about children. I looked for the word poem, poetry, poetic, and I couldn't find it. So, but I wanted to include it. So if you're listening to this and you know what I'm talking about, just at me and point at it. That'd be great, and we'll read it next time.
Okay. The Discord search has gotten so much worse.
It's weird. I would just think it would show what I'm looking for, but maybe it is like shit. I don't know what would make it hard. Like, but who knows?
Yeah.
All right. There's another quick thing I wanted to mention from, I guess, feedback from myself. I was asked by our CTO at my job to see if I'd be interested in using external AI tools to test if they improved my productivity. And I excitedly agreed. And I wasn't specifically asked, and I didn't volunteer the fact that I've been using it to enhance my work for the last, months. But I'm using Claude 3. And previously I've been using exclusively ChatGPT. Claude 3 is the one that came out in March that you have to pay for. And I'm already paying for one and it's plenty good. Claude 3 is amazing. There are some things that ChatGPT does that it doesn't. Like, for example, ChatGPT can search the internet. But man, I guess all I wanted to just mention, just as a brief plug here, is that if you haven't bought any one of these yet or subscribed or whatever, try Claude 3 and maybe there's other, maybe I'll do a Bayes blast on like the long pros and cons. In fact, I'm committing to doing that now. I'll do that at some point.
Oh, cool.
Like which ones are better, in my humble opinion, in which use cases. But I'll trim this just to say that if anyone is curious and wants to try out Claude 3, I recommend it. It's really cool.
All right.
And not just for coding stuff. Where it doesn't do internet searches, it does cite things that I'm able to look up and verify. So like it knows things and is able to say, well, here's where I got this from. And it's not pulling it from the web. You have to go look, and I looked and double checked and it was right. So cool stuff.
Yeah. So definitely better than GPT-4 even.
It's definitely competitive with, and certainly like for coding problems that I'm using it for, which is all I'm using it for work really. It seems better. Like it's faster on the uptake. One downside, this is getting more into stuff I'll talk about more later, but is I can't get it to stop apologizing, which is super annoying.
That is annoying.
I only had to ask once with ChatGPT. In fact, I can put it like in my settings of like put this basically at the top of every prompt or every new window, and I just say, don't apologize if you're wrong, just move on. I kept having to do that with this thing, and it's super annoying. But at least it didn't. At least every time I told it to stop apologizing, it didn't apologize for failing to do that before. So it would do it for like 2 more sentences or 2 more prompts. But
well, how much does Claude cost compared to ChatGPT-4?
I think it's $20 a month.
Oh,
I think it's the same price. Yeah, so they're going for the same thing. We can check that really quick. Claude 3, try Claude 3. Oh my God, just take me to the shut up and take my money part. Okay, so yeah, what I'm using is specifically the Opus model, which is $20 a month. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so, that's right. They have different strengths that you can buy at different prices.
Right. So, I mean, there is free Claude, and I had that on my phone before, actually. But I only used it a couple of times, and it wasn't as, like, the interface wasn't as good as ChatGPT. So I just relied on ChatGPT. Another main thing that Claude has going for it, which shouldn't count for so much, but it does, way better name.
Yeah.
ChatGPT is so hard to say.
Yeah.
And I mean, I get that they didn't know it would blow up the way it did in popularity, but I suspect that when the next model comes out, like the next big jump, I at least hope they'll call it something else. Because it's so hard to say ChatGPT, and it's actually kind of annoying to like punctuate every sentence with each of those syllables. Whereas I can say Opus or Claude 3 Opus really easily, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, Claude, it's cool. If anyone is only using ChatGPT, I recommend it.
Excellent. Alrighty. Finally, should we follow up with some of the comments from Gorky?
Let's save that for our patron content.
Okay. That's fair, because it was in response to a patron segment.
Yes.
Which means that Gorky is a patron, so we'd love him extra.
That's right. Yeah, it's from ages ago, so it'll be kind of out of the blue when we eventually get around to it.
Okay.
Anyway, I think that's it for all the feedback I had here. You know, some of this, you know, we've got some more things I think we want to talk about with the Collinses, but spoiler alert, we're going to be talking to the Collinses again. So
yeah,
that'll be coming up soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, let's transition on into the Less Wrong posts then.
Sounds good. Thanks, man. Eneasz, welcome back.
Oh, Steven, thank you very much. We are here to talk about the Less Wrong post like we usually do, yes?
Yes. Also, the Guild of the Rose.
Ah, yes, the Guild of the Rose. What's happening with our friends over at the Guild of the Rose?
Well, by the time this comes out, we'll have had our second IRL Guild of the Rose meeting or presentation on disaster preparedness.
This will actually be our third IRL meeting.
Oh, right. I missed the last one. How'd that go, by the way? That was External Brains, right?
Yeah, it went very well. Jason did a great job. He took the course that the Guild of the Rose has online, and since they are like specifically made to be online courses, translating them into IRL courses actually takes a bit of work, which I think, you know, is a good sign because they were optimized for the medium that they were meant for. And Jason put in just a lot of work and really made it a thing that you can present in real space in front of other people in a room, and it was great.
That's awesome. Yeah, I could tell from the one that I saw that Matt did that it was translated from an online course, but they are also primarily online. So if you aren't in the Denver area, then you can go to the guildoftherose.org and check out their stuff. By the way, their stuff is the kind of things that train rationalists to do rationalisty things rather than just listen to rationalisty content.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You develop those skills, and you develop them with other people that you get to know over a while because you train with the same group of core people, saying like 5 to 10 people every week or every other week, depending on how often you can do this.
Yeah. And as everyone knows, training in a group is always more beneficial than training solo.
Yes.
I think that's true for every endeavor, unless I'm missing something.
Let me see.
I mean, maybe like, you know, some specifically solo activity like juggling or whatever.
Even those, though, being in a group, like with the social dynamics of encouraging each other and getting tips from each other, even that, like it's better with social.
Yeah. All right. Solitary meditation is the only thing I can think of that you do better alone than with a group.
Fair enough.
All right. Well, you want to dive into the first Less Wrong post here? Yeah,
let's do it. Oh, wait, we forgot to say, if people want to join Guild of the Rose, go to theguildofrose.org or link in the show notes.
That's right.
Okay. Yes, let's dive in. What is the first what is the first Less Wrong post we got?
We've got the joy in discovery.
Ooh, hell yeah. He talks about the amazing feeling of discovering something for the very first time. And like, honestly, just discovering something at all is a great feeling. But being the absolute first person in the species to discover something, that is amazing.
Yeah, I always have related to this in the former fashion there of like discovering it myself rather than being the first on the planet or whatever.
Most people, yeah.
I mean, I've independently discovered like concepts that I later learned existed already.
Which is also really fucking cool.
Totally. And, you know, like the thing is like I'm the one who finds the sources and solutions to all the problems in my life, or like, you know, I don't know if I've mentioned the white whale that is my bathroom vent at this house. But we don't need the long version. The short version is that it's been a problem since I moved here a year and a half ago, and I'm still working to get it like perfectly resolved. But finding out like everything along the way that's wrong with it is like, oh, neat, I just figured this out, and that's fun.
Yeah.
Sure, I didn't like invent physics or whatever,
Right.
but figuring things out it's fun in a way that having somebody show you the answer isn't. And I've got a perfect way to illustrate this. Have you ever played Wordle? Most people have.
I've played games like Wordle. I've never played Wordle itself.
Close enough.
Mm-hmm.
Wordle changes its word of the day every day. And I remember some months ago, the Very Bad Wizards had they opened their segment with ramblings, kind of like us, because we do it throughout the episode. And they were talking about whether or not either of them had ever Googled the answer to a Wordle so that they didn't fail that day.
Mm.
And I think they both had at least once, and I have at least once, back when it was keeping track of streaks. And it doesn't keep track of streaks anymore without an account, and I refuse to make one. So now it's no pressure. And I think I did the one time because it was like, oh, that sucked all the fun out of it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that high of a high to get the answer, but it is not high at all to have it given to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I have two things about that. One is I want to rewind back in time just a little bit to say that I completely agree with you on the fixing things around the house and just in general, fixing things, maintenance, that kind of thing. They're always neat new challenges because it's always something different, and each little thing that goes wrong in a different way. And so it's a challenge that is constantly new, but you keep learning something each time, and then you've actually made your life better. So it's a great thing to pick up if you have the spare time to do it, which I assume most people do. Like, unless you're working 70 hours a week, you usually have some time to tinker around and try to fix stuff around the house. Just play a few less video games that day.
Well, and it depends on how pressing the issue is too. Like, there are days where I invent problems for myself because I'm bored,
right?
And then there are things that, like, oh yeah, the door doesn't close all the way and it goes outside. Like, this is a problem.
Yeah.
So,
like, when you don't have hot water, you can't take the time to figure that out on your own.
or at the very least, you can't put it off and play more video games, right?
Yes. Yeah. The other thing I want to do is just really agree with you on the video game thing. I think this was very much the downfall of World of Warcraft, that when the game first came out, like, you had to figure out most things by yourself, and the things that you didn't figure out by yourself, you got by like talking with other people. So at least there was a social aspect to it. And in the original game, like, you go back and you play those first raid boss fights nowadays, and they're so simple and even boring. But that's because, like, you know what to do. Like, part of the game originally was just figuring out, wow, I just died. What just happened? What ability does this boss have? How does it interact with other abilities? Like, just even figuring out on basic level what the hell is going on was part of the game. And at first, like, that was considered trade secrets among guilds. The guilds who were first downing bosses and progressing on bosses were figuring this out, and they kept it all very secret amongst themselves, and it would slowly sometimes leak out. And so, like, lesser scrub guilds like my own could pick up tips on, like, oh, this is what a boss does, this is how to counter it, so we didn't get ass stomped. But nowadays, like, literally everything is out, even before the game's released. It's out in beta, and everybody knows exactly how to do everything. So it's a completely different game now. Now it's about, like, executing. It's about figuring out how to do the thing. Like, you already know what you need to do. It's just executing on it that's difficult. It's a technical challenge as opposed to a discovery challenge, and
trying to, like, finesse, find strats or whatever,
Yeah, and that, it's a different game, which is fine. This is also a good game, but it's not the game you had originally, and I don't think you can ever have that game anymore because the internet is such a big thing now. From what I hear, the closest you get to that is Elden Ring, where the only way to get the story is to literally coordinate with, dozens, hundreds of other people who are playing through the game and collating all the various bits of stuff that you find and collecting it online and being like, oh my god, this is what's happening.
Well, and finding all the hidden walls and stuff, like, no one person has the time to do that.
Yes, exactly.
The world is so expansive, and so some games are meant to be played as a community like that. But yeah, I remember I really sucked a lot of the fun out of my first play of Skyrim by Googling, like, what would happen if I did this with the Dark Brotherhood quest line or whatever.
Yeah,
rather than just, like, go through it and do what I feel like and see what happens. Yeah. And so I've made an effort ever since to play every game like that. And man, I had a great time, especially with, like, Tears of the Kingdom. There was a whole giant thing that I had no idea about, and I just monkeyed around and found it, like, way early. And if I had watched a 10-minute playthrough video of somebody like, oh, here, I'm starting the game, and here's the things you need to know, they would have showed me that. Yeah. So going in, the thing is, and actually, this post ends with something that could as well be at the top. It's a quote by someone called Ran Priere, looks French. Quote: "A friend once told me that I look at the world as if I've never seen it before. I thought, that's a nice compliment. Wait, I never have seen it before. Did everyone else get a preview?" So when you get the opportunity, skip the preview.
Yeah.
Go in and discover it yourself. Like sometimes you need guardrails. Like if your car is making a weird noise, Google it and then try and figure out the problem. Don't just like open your hood for the first time and start hitting things with a wrench. But
right.
Use your discretion. You get it.
Yeah.
Y'all are smart.
Yes. Well, I guess back to the post. Elias just, I guess, goes into his thoughts on why it is that the discovery seems much more interesting when you discover it yourself rather than having it given to you. He says one of the things probably is that you don't struggle with a single problem for months or years if it's something you can just look up in the library, which is why it feels more good to discover something that is not unknown before, because there's literally no way to find it, right?
Or that is not known before. Yeah.
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 Sorry.
I have to imagine he's right. And I suspect Yudkowsky's made original discoveries, at least in niche areas, regarding, I guess it's hard to say, like inventing calculus is something that you can point at and be like, look, I'm correct.
Well, I mean, I think
fine tuning an area of AI alignment or something is less solid than calculus.
Yes, I do want to go back to the video game thing because it does feel to me like it's slightly less rewarding to do something that if there is an answer that you could just Google. Like it's still more rewarding than Googling it. That sucks all the fun out of it, and what's even the point? But being like the first person in a game, which is probably why the alpha closed releases are so popular, like being the very first person in and figuring it out when there's literally nowhere to look just feels better than figuring it out when okay, I'm doing this because it's fun, but I could look it up if I really wanted to.
There might be something to that. It was since I've eliminated that temptation or like squash it whenever it rears its head. I don't think that subtracts into the fun for me. Like knowing that there is an answer, or at least I can Google the question or whatever. I don't think that sucks any of the fun out. But maybe it's because I've never had the experience of playing a polished alpha before. So who knows? But
he does go on to agree with you later on in the post where he says, you know what? Everyone knows the answer to everything somewhere in the multiverse. That doesn't mean it's any less cool. And
exactly.
I just disagree with him on that matter. But
I
think that's purely a matter of taste.
And it might be a cope too.
Well, yeah, it could be. But I think that, yeah, I for me, it just actually does feel less cool. So there's that. And there's no good reason for it. There's no logical or rational reason. It's just that's how it feels.
Yeah, I guess maybe then the thing is to like try and adjust your feelings a little bit. But that's way easier said than done, I think, every time.
Yeah.
I do like that he considers the less charitable interpretations of why there's like a super high from being the first one to figure stuff out.
Yeah.
I think because I always like considering those views, and then sometimes I think there's something to them, and sometimes there's not.
What's the next one that he gives? The less charitable one.
Well, so the first one he gives is that there's like the commitment and consistency and cognitive dissonance of, well, I've worked on this project for 10 years, therefore the answer must be really valuable. Now I feel really good for having solved it.
Yeah.
I think. Oh, go ahead.
Well, no. You were in the middle.
I was going to say, like, I think that there's probably something to that, maybe a bit, but like since I've experienced the joy of figuring stuff out without burning a lot of time into it, I guess, like I do feel like it's intrinsically rewarding in itself.
Yeah.
So there might be something about the fact of like, I guess, I don't know, maybe I never really experienced a lot of happiness when I notice I've had cognitive dissonance. Usually it's some other emotion that I'm tricking myself into. But yeah, go ahead.
I agree with him that things that you do work harder at are more feel more valuable. I think this is large part of the reason for liking Burning Man and similar things. Like part of it is just proving to yourself that you can do it, but another part of it is like this was hard, and just the fact that it was really hard makes it intrinsically feel more important, more valuable. And he says this is like a slightly less charitable reading, but I don't find anything uncharitable about that. I think that it's entirely right and proper to value things that took more work more, because that means they're much harder to reproduce. They're harder to replicate. Like, you should value something that it costs 10,000 hours of labor to replace more than something that it costs 1 hour of labor to replace, right?
Yeah, I think that he's saying that that's where the high comes from, like in its entirety, rather than a large part of it.
Okay.
But yeah, I do think that. I mean, I've had problems with whatever stuff at my job where it's like I'm sitting there banging my head on this thing, and then it turns out like, oh, it was a typo, and I spent like 30 minutes or an hour or whatever, and it's like, so that is not a fun solution,
Right.
even though I found it. So
Right.
like there's nothing there that if like the answer isn't any fun, I don't get any high from it, even though it took me a while to figure it out.
Yes.
But
I do think that it seems to, like, he's saying that this is sort of like a bad cheat and we shouldn't use it. And I disagree, because I think like a clothes that you knitted yourself, or a bookshelf that you carved out of wood with your own hands, despite the fact that you didn't have to do all that labor. You could easily get a factory to pump that out for, 2 hours worth of labor on your end, the equivalent in money, or less. And the stuff you made by hand is probably going to be worse, especially the early ones are going to be worse. So you're doing a lot more labor for something that's much crappier. And yet, I always like those things more. They're more valuable to me. I have some history to them, and I think this is fine. Actually, I don't think that it's cheating to intentionally make things harder and take more labor so that you will like them more, because that's how humans work, right? It feels dumb to rail against the biology that we're imbued with because it's not perfectly rational or something.
I totally hear where you're coming from. But some part of my brain is grinding on that, and I'm trying to figure out exactly what it is. I think it's that this isn't the polished thought, but I can't find the right way to put it. Doing something the hard way for its own sake, to try and like get the payoff from it. I don't know. It seems like sometimes a suboptimal use of your time, maybe. But that's not exactly really my objection. Like,
but if you get something that you like more, it's not suboptimal then.
No, for sure. I'm trying to figure out. I mean, like, there's a reason that you don't spend all of your time making furniture.
Well,
right.
I have limited amount of time.
I mean, so that's part of it. So I guess when it comes down to allocating your time, you want to spend it as, usually in like some measure of a valuable way.
Yeah, I got to pick and choose what I can do and what I can't.
And so, like, as long as you're doing that, then reinventing the wheel every time doesn't sound like the best happiness factory, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I can't quite find my objection there. So I'll tacitly agree with what you said.
Okay.
I do like the really uncharitable reading is that the joy of first discovery is about status, competition, scarcity, beating everyone else to the punch. It doesn't matter whether you have a 3-room house or a 4-room house. What matters is having a bigger house than the Joneses. I suspect that's more plausible and probably true in some cases. Being the first one to figure something out and being able to rub someone else's face in it is probably, a lot of fun for somebody.
Why do you have to add rubbing someone else's face in it to that, though?
Because if you're the first one to figure it out, like, if your house is bigger than the Joneses, but they don't know it, there's no point in your house being bigger, right?
The
whole point is that you have it better than they do, and they know it.
But you aren't doing it to make them feel bad. You're doing it to see. Because my comment on this, like, why is this uncharitable? I think that it's actually good to have status from doing things that are hard or making great discoveries or cool things in life.
It should give you status. I think what he's trying to get at, though, is like the focus of this is the joy in discovery. And what makes it joyful? Is it the fact that you did it first and like you get to be like, aha, I beat you to it? Or is it the fact that like it's intrinsically fun to figure something out?
Okay, it's intrinsically
I think he's arguing more for the latter.
It's intrinsically fun to do something first, though.
I think it is.
Like, like the reason I don't like the word that he used uncharitable is because it feels like a personality judgment. Like, or when saying that you're rubbing someone's face in it, you're saying they're a bad person for liking getting status for doing something first. And I don't think that makes you a bad person at all. I think that's great, and that should be both fine, and it is kind of admirable to recognize that someone is the kind of person that can and does go and do something first.
Let's say you got to play like the alpha release of the new World of Warcraft or something, and I've never played World of Warcraft, and I know it doesn't quite work this way, but just bear with me for the tortured analogy. You know, you get through the first big dungeon, and you find this cool secret at the end, right? That would feel awesome, especially, you know, you're the first one to do it. If you knew that your friend or somebody else found something there first, or like whatever, then you go online to post about it, and then you see someone else posted it. Like, I get that it would take some of the oomph out of your having discovered it, but it shouldn't suck all the fun out.
Yeah, no, it shouldn't suck all the fun out, but it's a part of it.
It's part of it. I don't know. I think, and I do think there's something to this. You know, like, I like watching Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune, and I especially like doing it in a group, or at least with more than one, with more than just me in the room, because when I know an answer, I shout it. Right?
Awesome.
And
but what if you got the status of shouting it before someone else did, Steven?
Well, that's the thing, is I actually enjoy that. So I do think there's something to this.
Yeah.
I felt really good last night. I was watching, it's Jeopardy Masters, and it's Victoria Grosh and James Holzhauer, like the two titans of Jeopardy and trivia. And I knew an answer they both didn't.
Nice.
It was the only one.
Yeah.
But I forget which one it was. But I might even go back and skim the episode so I can find that question again, because I'm like, I knew an answer that both of those people didn't know.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it felt great.
Was it a question about like AI or rationality or something?
I wish. It might have been, there was a category called star words or something, and it was the answers are things like pulsars and neutron star or something. It might have been in that category, it might have been somewhere else, but yeah, they were both and there was a third contestant, but they were just, trailing along. But yeah, I knew something that the two of them didn't, so that felt awesome. And it wasn't just that I got to it first; it was that they didn't know. But like, if I was, watching it on the TV at the gym and I didn't get to like yell it and be like, aha, I would still find that fun. But it is more fun kind of doing it in front of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but that's not
and that's
all the
good,
fun.
Actually. No, it's not all the fun. It's just
that's right. Yeah, and I maybe that would be the difference here that is worth all this belaboring, is that it's okay for these to be, for you to enjoy something more just because it took you longer.
Yeah.
And it's okay for you to enjoy something more just because you got there first. But that shouldn't be the only way to get fun.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the only way to get this high, whatever this feeling is, the joy of discovery, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as long as those aren't your only sources of joy of discovery, then that's fine. But these are definitely ingredients, I think.
Yeah. One of the things he says about all this is that the euphoric jive of scientific discovery has to be about scarcity. Like, if it does, that means it's only available to one person per civilization for any given truth. And I mean, certainly the high of being the first person to discover that thing is scarce in that way. And I don't know what to say to him aside from like, yeah, that's reality, dude. I'm sorry. I guess it kind of sucks, but also it just feels weird to say that this is a bad thing about people, that they would enjoy having that. It's not uncharitable in any regards. It's just, unfortunate.
I think his phrasing is that the really uncharitable reading is that the joy of discovery is about status. Because it might be partially about status, but it's not purely status. I
mean, if his argument is that some people think that is purely about status. See, that's such a dumb argument. I don't think that's what he's saying.
That's fair. You know what? We'll have to ask him at some point.
Okay.
But I don't know. Like, I do like figuring things out, but knowing that someone else has done it first doesn't strip a lot of the fun out for me, and I don't think it should.
Mm-hmm.
It's I don't know. Maybe if I ever make an original discovery, or invent something novel, then I'll be like, aha, this is actually awesome. I have no idea what I was talking about before. Previous me had no idea how high this euphoria could go.
Mm-hmm.
But as I am now, I think that being the second or the thousandth to the punch is totally fine. The point is the real joy is the fun you had along the way and the discovery at the end of it, right?
Yeah.
I think that's totally fine. Then you can, on top of that, pile the joy of like, and I worked really hard at this for a decade, and I beat everyone else on Earth to the question or to the answer.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that it should be intrinsically fun. And I don't think actually you and I are disagreeing. I think it's just him calling it uncharitable rather than saying this is a thing that could be stacked on top of it, but shouldn't be the focus.
Right. Yeah. It's entirely an aesthetic argument.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Which I'm finding a lot more things are about aesthetics than I thought. And someone recently said everything is about aesthetics ultimately, which I'm not sure I agree there, but I think it's more true than I thought it was.
I don't know if there's a quick way to dive into that or not.
Well, our most recent Fallout episode where we talked.
Oh yeah.
We talked for a while about crap. What was it? Now that we went on about,
it was about the how the writers wanted us to view the Vault Dwellers versus how the society, like in universe. Views
I was thinking specifically about calling something luck as opposed to work other people did. And ultimately we don't disagree on anything of substance, but we disagree on the aesthetics. I really dislike the aesthetics of saying that, oh, you are just lucky, as opposed to you are the benefactor of other people's work. And that it's just an aesthetic argument. And yet I was feeling quite impassioned by it.
I like that. I think it's fun to get impassioned. And I think maybe we don't actually disagree. But what was I going to say? Oh yeah, that reminds me. If you're only subscribed to this feed, there was once upon a time a podcast called The Methods of Rationality, where Eneasz did the Harry Potter Methods of Rationality audiobook, and then subsequent other books, and it's been a source of random stuff since then. So keep that feed alive, because Eneasz and I are doing an episode by episode kind of just dissection and discussion of the TV show about Fallout.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And there's another fun project coming up that'll be either released all at once or released once a week for like 37 or 40 weeks.
Ooh,
so
very mysterious. I know what it is.
You do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so keep your eyes open for that.
Okay.
But yeah, so let's look at it this way. Is Newton a selfish bastard for explaining the orbits of the planets and the tides?
That dick.
Should he have left some fun on the table for the rest of us?
He could have, couldn't he?
He doesn't even strike me as that happy of a guy. I don't know a lot about him, but he seems like more of like an angry misanthrope than a joyful, Sagan style scientist. Right?
I always heard he was kind of a dick, and now I am convinced.
I mean, the alternative though would be to figure this stuff out and then just keep it secret. But then you lose the fun of being publicly the first one to figure it out and being able to laud that as a source of victory, right? Which has its own intrinsic value, or which also has value, right?
Yeah, and it has
so
value.
We don't want to tell them not to have fun, but
and it has value to the rest of society to know this.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty big deal.
Might be a drag that he got to do it all himself, but it's nice that he told everybody.
One thing I want to pull out, which he said just a little bit earlier, which I think we skipped over an accident. Eliezer says, I strongly suspect that a major part of science's PR problem in the population at large is people who instinctively believe that if knowledge is given away for free, it cannot be important. If you had to undergo a fearsome initiation ritual to be told the truth about evolution, maybe people would be more satisfied with the answer. I don't know what to do with that, because, again, the fact that society does know these things is incredibly beneficial for society. And yet, boy, does he have a point. And that would just be a much more fun world to live in.
It would be. And I think it would do something to fight the feeling that, the facts of nature are in the dull catalog of whatever, common things, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I can go look up how this works and on the internet, so it can't be that interesting.
No, but do you want to know what a rainbow really is? Well, first you have to be initiated into this cult of knowledge after having served 2 years in the mountains or something.
Exactly. I think that there would be something fun to that, and it's
kind of how Scientologists work, right?
I think so, although I don't know exactly how they work, and I'm not rich enough to find out. But like, yeah, the thing is, like, you could still enjoy the fruits of the labor of a light bulb or something, but no one's going to tell you how it works until you follow the initiation rituals. That'd be kind of fun.
That would be fun.
Well, if we get a chance to restructure society, let's consider that as an option.
All right. We'll do this right after the Jutlarian Jihad. Or Jutlarian Jihad. Butlarian Jihad. Jesus, what did I just do?
That's a good one.
That was so crazy. How did my tongue do that? Okay.
Yeah. Transposed, you spoke dyslexically. It happens to me all the time.
Does it?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think dyslexically sometimes. So
cool.
I mean, it's less cool than it sounds.
Well, yeah, good point.
So I like his answer here that the solution, the consistent solution, which maintains the possibility of fun, is to stop worrying about what other people know.
Hell yeah.
So I do agree with that. Like, if I could go online and Google, in fact, like this is true for games that I've beaten a lot, like especially like Elden Ring or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If I do find a secret, like, I don't care if it's on a wiki somewhere. Like, I found it. How cool is that?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's legit to be fine with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to your point, the next bullet point, I think, harkens back to what we're saying about Newton as well.
The joy of assisting your civilization by telling it something it doesn't already know does tend to be one shot per discovery per civilization.
Yeah. No one else gets credit for calculus or explaining the orbit of planets.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I do think fun is very important. I think doing important, meaningful things is also important and is different from fun. So, optimizing for two different things here, and I'm not sure if we should need to talk about them in the same paragraph. Like, some people are trying to discover new important things, and some people are trying to have fun, and those don't necessarily overlap.
No, but like the joy of figuring something out is kind of the thing that meets in the middle there in that Venn diagram, right?
Yeah, I think fun is generally always training, and when there's no opportunity for good fun training, you'll never get to the point where you want to discover all new important things. And so it is bad if we strip all the fun out of learning from the very beginning, because then you're not going to get new people who love learning. And
I think you're onto something about fun being largely about training.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly a lot of play seems to be about training.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I like this last one, that if you don't know, it's a mystery. Or rather, if you don't know, it's a mystery. And now think of the many things you don't know. Isn't the world suddenly a much more mysterious and magical and interesting place? As if you'd been transported to an alternate dimension and had to learn all the rules from scratch.
Right? You don't need
Why
to
does that sound like such a great fiction premise?
I know. But yeah, and that's his point. You don't need to be isekai'd into a different game world. You already don't know almost everything about this one.
And that's something I try to remind myself of once in a while, where, and I think at some point in this sequence actually probably be the ones about like how a lot of our mundane abilities are pure magic if you try to explain them to somebody without them.
Mm-hmm.
Like the fact that you and I are communicating our thoughts together using acoustic vibrations.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, we're even doing it over, the magical medium of the internet, right?
Yeah.
But like, just because basically everyone can talk makes it seem like it's less magic, and it's less unique, but it's still really freaking cool.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be a superpower if it wasn't super common.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, anything else on this one?
You were reminding me of that post that he had a while ago where he mentions all the things we do that are super common, but like if you look at it for the first time, is freaking superpowers.
Oh, okay, so that one was before. I thought it might have been coming up. I knew it was going to be around this because it ties so well to this kind of point here.
Yeah, I think. Maybe it's coming. I think it was before, though.
I think you're right. Who knows?
We've gone through several hundred at this point. It's hard to remember which ones we've already done and which ones we read in the distant past.
Exactly. The distant past for me is anything more than like 3 weeks ago. So
right. All right. On to bind yourself to reality.
Sounds good.
All right. That's the next last strong post, and he is trying to make the point. Well, what is this first bullet point here? Hold on.
He's explaining why he's taking the time to explain why, like, reducing things can be fun, or like doesn't suck the fun out of the world. Because he's like, I do plan to take certain things apart, and I don't want to, suck all the fun out of your lives. So I'm explaining why this won't suck the fun out of it.
Oh yeah, yeah. Good intermediate step here. I'm glad because otherwise, you don't necessarily want to do things that are going to suck all the fun out of your life. And he's saying like, no, this isn't going to suck the fun out of your life, dude. Chill out.
Yeah. Uh, this is not really related to the post, but there's a line here. But even more deeply, it's one of those subtle, hidden core rationality things. The sort of thing where I start talking about the way. It's about binding yourself to reality. There's a link in there to yudkowsky.net/virtues, and that link isn't alive anymore. I think the whole website might be down.
Oh, that's interesting. No, Yudkowsky.net is up.
Yeah.
Oh, he moved it. If you go to Yudkowsky.net and then click on rationality, scroll down a little bit, and there's 12 virtues of rationality.
Oh, rational/virtues rather than just /virtues.
Yes.
Well, he didn't update the Less Wrong post that was 15 years old, so come on.
He's worse than Newton.
But at least it takes you to a 404 on the same website. It doesn't just take you to a blank, could not be found page. So
yeah, so you can find it again if you click around a bit.
Oh, good. Well, that changes that sad face that I put in the comments to I'll just delete the sad face. Boom. Great. It's still there.
Yeah. But yes, so you can find the 12 virtues of rationality if you like.
Yeah.
In this post, he's saying that to get close to the truth, you really got to be willing to press yourself up against reality as tightly as possible without flinching away or sneering down. And you can see this bind yourself to reality theme because I still wasn't quite getting what he was getting at. He says, as an example, you can see this theme in the old post, Lotteries, A Waste of Hope, where understanding that lottery tickets have negative expected utility does not mean you give up the hope of being rich. It means you stop wasting that hope on lottery tickets.
Yeah, I like that. And I mean, the thing is like, you're not going to be able to, you'll have a much harder time discovering something original and enjoying that fun if you're lying to yourself or just not engaging properly with the world around you.
Yeah.
So, I'm trying to think of, I like the shape of the kind of problem might be like if you're trying to solve a societal problem, if you refuse to engage with certain possibilities about the cause of it or are just lying to yourself about it or whatever, you'll be unlikely to find the solution.
Yeah, well, I mean, not only that, I think this post is talking a lot about like the emotional aspects of things because like he said at the beginning, he's trying to point out this isn't going to ruin your life. Like going back to the whole unweaving the rainbow thing that Keats was like, oh, now rainbows are just lame or whatever. The quote I pulled out of here that I think is most pertinent to this is that Eliot just says, so instead of destroying emotional energies associated with bad explanations, let us redirect these emotional energies into reality. Want to fly? Don't give up on flight. Give up on flying potions and build yourself an airplane. So,
perfect.
Yeah, he's not destroying the emotion of the rainbow. He's redirecting it to, the wonder of how light works and how it can be bent and refracted and turned into all these crazy things that we then detect with our eyeballs, these little squishy meat things in our heads. And that's a very different type of wonder, but it doesn't mean you destroyed any sort of emotional wonder. You just redirected it from dumb magic stuff into like really weird, complex physics stuff.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to put it. And he puts it succinctly as well, saying it's not dreams I object to, only impossible dreams.
Yes. So this post, I thought touched on a little bit of this core conflict that we seem to get a lot in rationality / post-rationality. I'm just going to quote this. He says, the Hollywood rationality stereotype is that rational equals emotionless. The more reasonable you are, the more of your emotions reason inevitably destroys. When you have arrived at your best picture of the truth, there is nothing... Oh, then he objects that when you have arrived at your best picture of the truth, there is nothing irrational about the emotions you feel as a result of that. The emotions cannot be destroyed by truth, so they must not be irrational.
Yeah, I think, especially like I said, in some of the post-rat circles that say that seems to still think that rationality advocates straw volcanism just haven't actually engaged the rationalists or rationality that much, which is fair. I'm not going to tell people they're doing stuff wrong, but yeah. I will tell people that they're wrong if they're shitting on something. If they're shitting on something in a way that isn't even accurate to what it's saying.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that part I do draw contention with.
I agree. I think he
there's plenty of legit reasons to disagree with rationalists, but to say, because they're a bunch of emotionless robots who want us all to be Spock, that's just lying.
Yeah, he said.
And I'm not saying anyone's actually saying that I've met, but just hypothetically.
So I do want to talk about this just a bit. In the post, he quotes this previous line of his that says, "When physics seems counterintuitive, you've got to accept that it's not physics that's weird, it's you." That's, I don't know, many dozens of posts back, but he says like this same thing applies to emotions. You just swap out emotions for physics here, and that's what I'm talking about right now. So I did that, and then the line turns into, "When emotions seem counterintuitive, you've got to accept that it's not emotions that are weird, it's you." Which is very much a sort of thing that you would hear from the embodied emotion post-strat people kind of say, that like the emotions are just there. They're telling you something. You got to accept them. And if you have problems with them, that's a you problem, not a emotions problem. So like he's been talking this whole post-strat thing from the very beginning. And I think the people, the so-called post-rats who haven't read in the sequences don't know any of this stuff intimately. They don't know that. But also, it's hard to fault them entirely, because even though Eliezer does know this and does talk about it sometimes, nonetheless, like the vibes he gives out, the whole aesthetic, at least initially, is very much of a, we need to lean more into the Spocky reasonableness stuff, and only later does the whole... I mean, he barely touches on the emotions thing at all, because I think to him it just wasn't a big deal. Like, he already knew how to do all this emotional processing and embodiment, and so he didn't need to write about it. And I think maybe he didn't realize that a lot of his readers are nowhere near where he is in that developmental stage. And since he concentrated on the other parts, like a lot of the rationalists that read him did, in fact, have a big disconnect with their emotions. And so I don't think the post-rats are necessarily wrong in feel. They're wrong on the ground level facts, but Eliezer didn't write about emotions very much at all, and now they're kind of picking up that slack just because he didn't feel he needed to, and it turns out that someone did need to, and it's a good thing that there's some people around doing it. Does any of this sound reasonable to you?
No, totally. I mean, I think all of us, at least, I mean, maybe I'm definitely typical minding. I will say, I am sure that many of us, because I've spoken with many of us, have gone through a phase where it's like, no, I should tune my emotions down. You know, I should feel less, and that's not the way to live. Yeah. And that is like, it's not ignored in Yudkowsky's OG sequences, but it's not belabored that much. And so maybe so I think what they're picking up on, like the post-rats who would say that, you know, rationalists are emotionless, they're picking up on like what people are actually doing, not what, like, you know, whatever our holy book says to do. Right.
Yeah.
So no, I can follow that completely. It's one of those things, like facing like a sad truth or whatever, or an uncomfortable truth, is difficult, and it shouldn't be, or like it, I don't want to say it shouldn't be painless, because it really shouldn't be. Like, you know, you can acknowledge something, be like, yep, well, that sucks, and that's the end of that. And it can be, but it's fully human and fully appropriate to let your feelings go to a sad place and stay there for a minute and feel that, right? Yeah.
Well, I guess I'm just going to take this moment to really quickly remind everyone that if you want to go hang out with a whole bunch of rationalists and post-rats, there's Vibe Camp 3 coming up, and that is where a ton of post-rats go to, I don't know, try to do rationalist stuff and also do emotion stuff and mix it all together, and it's a weird, crazy place. So, as we said earlier in the episode, check it out, maybe come visit.
Well, anything else on this post then?
I think that's all of it.
Great. I like these. I remember both of these, I think, pretty well from my first time, because they're I don't know. I think I like some of the more like emotional and like personal ones more. Not necessarily like, you know, those aren't exclusively my favorites, but they often are. You know, I also really love, like, you know, the Bleg and Rube example. Like, there's nothing like that I can relate to on an emotional level with those things, other than like, oh yeah, of course. You know, getting the difference between whatever, how our words map to things and how things map to our words, right? I remember all those too, but these ones are a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But let's look what's coming up for next time. We've got If You Demand Magic, Magic Won't Help. That sounds fun.
It does.
And The Beauty of Settled Science.
I always like beauty.
Yeah, me too. And settled science is a fun term, because sometimes things are less settled than they seem. So
that's true.
All right. Well, we'll have to find out in a couple weeks.
Right. Well, before we sign off, we have to do one last thing.
The most important thing.
The most important thing, absolutely, is to thank our patron. this week we are thanking John Slape.
John, you're a badass.
You rock. You help us keep this podcast going, and we appreciate everyone's support, and we appreciate your support specifically this episode. Thank you so much.
And I'm not the least bit shy about saying that it makes me feel really nice to have supporters like you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Alrighty.
Great. Well, we'll see you guys back here in a couple weeks.
All right. See you then. Bye.
Thanks.